YouTube, what's going on, man? It's Father Dark, and I am up bright and early. Not that I slept at all. I really couldn't sleep last night. I have no idea why. So I decided to just come in here and talk to you guys about what it is that has been running through my mind that I've been thinking about personally. Now, this video, I'm going to go ahead and preface and say that this video is going to be a lot different. So I got two things to preface. But first, this video is going to be a lot different. Usually we just kind of talk about Call of Duty, Marvel Rivals, whatever we're playing at the time. We discuss updates and all that kind of stuff, but this is not one of those. This is something that's personal to me that I want to think about, but it also is extremely relevant to the gaming community. And it's something that, I'll probably only talk about this once, but, it has been something that's been on my mind for a while. So I feel like it is good to just go ahead and rant about it. And that's what I'm going to do. I'm just going to rant. So this might be a long one. I don't know yet. But I feel like it's probably going to take a while for me to cover all the points and topics that I want to, or I feel I need to be able to get to that end point of what it is that I'm overall kind of thinking, because it is a very, I feel like, interesting but complex kind of like topic, and it's hard to just kind of summarize it in like a 9 to 10 minute video, right? So like I said, you might want to pop a seat, maybe put this on in the background while you're doing something, cleaning up, whatever. But nonetheless, though, the other preface that I want to say is that I have no, me personally, I'm not one way or the other. I'm not Microsoft. I'm not PlayStation. I don't personally care. Is this a Microsoft household? Yes, but that's not because it's like we're fanboys and we're riding for one side or the other. No, it's not that. It's just that after you get to my age, and you've seen so much, and now that we have like cross-platform and stuff, there is no reason for me to buy multiple consoles unless there's something that I specifically want from that console. But there hasn't been a need for me to get a PlayStation in a very long time. Like, they just personally haven't released anything that's been only exclusive to them that I felt like I need to just go out and spend $500 on top of having numerous consoles in the house for pretty much everybody, my kids, my wife, me, and then, on top of the fact that, me and my sons, we both have PCs. So you're talking about a lot of stuff here, right? And like I said, pretty much anything that comes out that's on PlayStation that I do care about, I can play on PC as well. So it just hasn't been a reason. But I'm saying that to say that don't think from listening to this video that, oh, well, he's more leaning toward Microsoft because he has Microsoft products. No, it's a means to an end. I just want a game. I don't get caught up in the I'm I'm on one side or the other. No, so please don't think that. But now that we covered that, let's go ahead and get into it, right? So I saw something really interesting the other day. Let me pull it up really quick. Sorry, I got like a million tabs open on my phone, but let me just pull this up, right? So I saw something the other day. It was about Marvel Rivals, and it was just talking about how much they made, right? And usually I wouldn't pay this any mind because live service games tend to, especially when they're popular, they tend to make a lot of money, right? I'm talking about billions of dollars. Like COD, for example, in cosmetics alone, I think they made like 8 or 9 billion within like a 3-month time period every year, just off of like cosmetics alone. That's not even counting what they make off of their, the sales from their actual yearly, annual releases of games and stuff, right? So, and I can only imagine how much Fortnite makes because they have a ridiculous amount of cosmetics and a ridiculous player base, right? So, but nonetheless, though, I saw this and it caught my eye, right? It said in its first month, Marvel Rivals reportedly made $54.5 million on Steam, $27.2 million on PlayStation, and $2.7 million on Xbox. So you think about that, right? 54 million, 27 million, and then 4 or 2.7? I already closed my phone, so I don't feel like looking at it again. But nonetheless, you heard it the first time, right? But you're talking about a massive difference for Xbox. And I, reading the comments, I saw people say different things. One of the guys was like, well, all Xbox players are kids. Not true. I know plenty of adults that play on Xbox, right? I know plenty of adults that spend plenty of money on Xbox that are adults, myself included, right? But like prior to getting a PC, that was what I played on all the time was Xbox, and I have zero problem forking out money. You guys should know. I mean, I'm a content creator, so anytime there's new stuff in a game, I just go ahead and get it because I showcase it in videos and stuff like that, whether I enjoy it or not. It's still stuff that a lot of people are interested in and want to see a lot of times. So I just go ahead and take that L and fork out the money for it. regardless. But there's a lot of things that I do want, games that I want to try out, all types of stuff, and I have zero problem. Gaming has went from a hobby to, a career for me. So, to me, that's just kind of like what it is, right? Whether it's a hobby or a business expense, it's something that I'm going to do either way, right? So nonetheless, though, that can't be the case, right? But then when you really think about it, though, it starts to make a little bit more sense. So let's just look at some facts here, right? In regards to PlayStation and Microsoft. Give me 1 second to pull it up here. I got 1 million pages open. So the first thing that a lot of people kind of already know, but maybe some people don't, we'll just go ahead and put this out here. PlayStation is outselling Xbox by a significant margin, like a very significant margin, right? It says in 2024 of August, PS5 has sold over 61 million units, with the Series X/X having only sold around 28 million. So that's roughly a 3-to-1 margin, right? And if you really think about that, 3-to-1, in my opinion, is not close. Now, maybe some people will say, oh, it's not that bad. But that is not close, like at all, in my opinion. You're talking about 3 times the amount of people when they go out are saying to themselves, they're going, hey, you know what? I'd rather have this console over this console. Now, me personally, I feel like, I'm just going to put my opinion out there just in regards to this, and then we'll move on. I think it's kind of like a Android, iPhone type of deal, right? Because that's kind of like the only other thing that I see where there's 2 types of something, right? Like, because if you think about like cars and, so many other things in life, there's so many different options. So it's hard for people to say, oh, well, this thing is better than this thing because there's so many different versions of it. When it comes to like consoles and phones, they're these things that everybody, like, not everybody, but a lot of people use, right? A ridiculous amount of people. And like I said, there's only 2 options of them. So when there's 2 options, people tend to pick a side. And I noticed that people tend to take certain things very personally. I remember I saw an article where they were talking about like, there was like certain women that were saying they wouldn't even date a guy that didn't have an iPhone. And I thought it was hilarious because I've never like interacted with people like that in the real world. I have met a few people that had this very like tribalistic view of them. They would say, oh, the iPhone's better and all this kind of stuff. But it's like, I've never met like a woman who in real life was like, I can't date this guy that I genuinely like because he doesn't have an iPhone, right? Or vice versa, right? Somebody that's so into Android, they're like, well, I just can't deal with iPhone people, right? And it just comes down to personal choice. At the end of the day, they both can pretty much do the same thing. Now, there are certain things like, for example, with Androids, you can like, it's easier to root your phones and pretty much install any type of operating system and all that kind of stuff. And then Apple does have extremely good security, like to the point to where the FBI and the CIA are like, Apple, look, we need you to make a backdoor for us. And they were just kind of like, nope, sorry, because then you guys might, know something about our phones that you shouldn't know. And we're not doing that, right? So technically there are these massive differences, but at the end of the day, they both, when you really start putting them side by side, but outside of the 2 things that I just mentioned, they pretty much do the same exact things, right? And there are some Androids that have better specs than iPhones in multiple different categories. But the thing is that Android makes so many different versions of Android. You have extremely bad Android phones, you have medium range Android phones, and then you have like just ridiculously over the top Android phones that no one would need type of specs they have. Whereas with iPhone, they pretty much just make the same phone with very, very slight differences, like in price ranges for people. But ultimately, they just kind of make 3 or 4 versions every year of the same phone with bigger screens, slightly better or less cameras and processors, but they're ultimately the same thing, right? And the reason that I bring that up is because, like I said, I noticed that with the iPhone Android thing, it's like this constant, like the way you have the console where people constantly go back and forth. It's this thing where people are constantly going back and forth about which phone is better and which one you should have and all of this kind of stuff. Nonetheless, though, the point that I was making with that is that I realized very early on that iPhone kind of like positioned themselves in like higher up in like the popularity race, right? Like you start to see them more like in videos and stuff, movies, different things, celebrities having them and stuff like that. And it became this thing where it was like a popularity kind of like race, like of, oh, well, look, this person has an iPhone, this person uses it, I saw him using it in this movie or whatever, and just gets name dropped more. And then that kind of gives people this feeling that it's better, because the average person cannot tell you like what's going on with their phone or the specs or any of that stuff. And keyword, I said the average person. No different than they can tell you the specs on anything that they use. They pretty much just go in a store, they say what can do the things that I needed to do, and then they grab it and they take it home or whatever, right? And it's kind of like, to me, the same thing with PlayStation and Xbox is that there was kind of like this popularity race with it when they, because obviously PlayStations, I believe, came out first, if I'm not mistaken. But then nonetheless, though, it wasn't that long after that Xboxes came out. And the point that I'm making is that with that, whenever there's like two competitors in something, and you start to kind of sway the public opinion, and you get people to think that one thing is better than the other, and they can't really like describe to you why it's better. They don't know the ins and outs of what makes it better. They just know that more people are using it. A lot of people are just kind of like followers in that sense. And that's not to offend anyone. It's just kind of a fact. That's just kind of, like I said, just like with the iPhone and Android thing. See, me being like a really techie person, I actually look at specs for things before I buy them. And I understand what the specs mean. I understand what the processor means. I understand the actual, the camera and all the different features and stuff that come with it. I understand when it says it has this much RAM and all of that kind of stuff. I can tell you why I like my Android phone better than an iPhone, right? And why it suits me and benefits me for what my needs are, right? But like I said, the average person that I talk to, and they'll say, well, my phone's better than yours. And I go, one, you don't even know what kind of phone I have. Second of all, can you tell me why? Like, and being like the kind of person I am, like a by the numbers kind of guy, I genuinely want to know, like, why is your thing better than mine, right? And you will say, well, it's just better because, like, it's the more popular thing. It's just, so everybody's using it. Look at this celebrity. They're using it. Look at this person. And I saw it in this movie and blah, blah, blah. I'm like, that doesn't mean it's better. It just means that it's been, there's more advertising. It's being marketed more, right? But to me, it's kind of the same thing with PlayStation. PlayStation has just become this very like household kind of name. Not saying that Microsoft isn't, but I can't really like describe it. But it's just this thing where people really get like up in arms over their consoles and making it seem like PlayStation is just better without really having any understanding of why it's better, right? And they're like, well, this one has 13 teraflops and yours only has 11. And I'm like, do you know what a teraflop is, or like what that actually does or means or anything? Like, come on, man. Anyway, so we discussed that, right, in regards to the fact that PlayStation is outselling Xbox by a significant margin. We got that out of the way. So let's move on, right? So first, another thing that I want to put out there is let's just look at net worths for the companies, right? So because that will become relevant here shortly, right? So it says that as of January 10th, 2025, Sony's net worth was $121.42 billion, right? So, and also I just want to say too that Sony and Microsoft both are bigger than just consoles. They don't just make consoles. They make all types of stuff. There's a ridiculous amount of stuff that Sony makes. There's a ridiculous amount of stuff that Microsoft makes, right? So saying that like there's a net worth for these companies is not solely just their budget for gaming, because like I said, they make so many things outside of that. I mean, Sony is literally a whole entire, like they have a whole entire department just for movies and stuff like that. So completely different thing, but still though, it's still good to know overall like what the companies have as far as value, right? So they have a market cap of 121.42 billion. So then we go over to Microsoft net worth, and they have a market cap of 3.112 trillion. I'm gonna say that again for the people in the back that are hard of hearing. $3.112 trillion. Okay. Let's go back to Sony. Sony only has a market cap of 121.42 billion. Okay. I don't think people understand how much money that is that Microsoft has. They could literally buy Sony like 50 times over and still have $1 trillion left. I mean, do you get what I'm saying here? Maybe not 50, but you get the point that I'm making, right? They could buy them a ridiculous amount of times over and over again and would still be one of the most successful companies out there. Now, that's never going to happen simply because Microsoft had to go like for a whole, what was it, like a year, maybe two? I can't remember exactly how long it was, just to buy out Activision, Blizzard, and King, right? And that was just one gaming studio. Now, technically, it's not one game; they're three. But you get what I'm saying? Like they're an overall like gaming studio. They're multiple packed into one. But still, that was just one out of numerous game studios they own, and it was such a big deal, and for so much money. You're talking about what was it, like 74 or 75 billion dollars or something like that, which is a drop in the bucket to them, nothing. And that took well over a year to finalize that, for it to happen. A lot of people didn't even think it was going to happen, because of the FCC and so many different things that had to get involved, and you had Sony fighting tooth and nail to stop them, to the point where they even came out and they said, hey, Call of Duty just makes up too much of our budget, to where if they were to go exclusive with COD, that we wouldn't be able to function the way that we do anymore. And that brings me to the next point that I of stuff that I was thinking about, right? Is it's kind of like people, right? If you want to put it down on a smaller scale, right? Let's say that you're out somewhere, you bump into a guy, and your first instinct is, yo, this dude just bumped into me. Let me check him and see what his problem is, right? But then you go to look at the guy, and the guy is literally 3 times your size, right? You got to look all the way up, fully extend your head to look up to this guy. And, he's looking at you like, yo, you got something to say to me? Now this guy may not be someone who's super aggressive. Maybe he just accidentally bumped into you, was going to say he's sorry. Right. But then he looks down and he sees how short you are. And he's just kind of like, hey, man, you want to apologize to me? Now, the thing is most people, listen, they might try to feel like, oh, well, I don't care how big somebody is. No, I'm sorry. When you see somebody 3 times your size, you're probably going to adjust your attitude. Right. But with that comes a level of insecurity, and naturally so. If I bump into somebody and he's 3 times bigger than me, like, I'm already a tall guy, but it's like, if you're 3 times taller than me, you're a giant to me, bro. I'm not about to sit here and try you, you know what I mean, and be looking crazy in front of people. So I know there has to be a level of insecurity on Sony's end when you're talking about a company that just absolutely makes you seem dwarf in comparison financially. Do you get what I'm saying right now? So, and the reason why I'm explaining that is because Sony has had a very different approach than Microsoft when it comes to a lot of the stuff that especially came out when Microsoft was making the acquisition, or trying to get the acquisition going of Activision, Blizzard, and King. A lot of stuff came out because that's kind of like what happens. Like if you take someone to court, a lot of stuff's going to get exposed on their end, but it also get exposed on your end. That's the whole thing. They got to go through everybody's stuff. And something that we already kind of had known for a while, deep down inside, secretly, through random leaks, whatever, came out fully into light. And that was that Sony had been going around for a long time and basically telling game companies like, hey, if you give us an exclusive to this game or whatever, we'll pay you so much money, or whatever the case is, right? And this is something that Microsoft was not really doing. Like, Microsoft wants to be buddy and be cool with everybody, and look at us, guys, we're the consumer-friendly gaming, corporation and all this kind of stuff. Whereas Sony has not wanted to do that. I don't know if I just had a brain fart because I'm just thinking that I just say Sony was the one that wanted to be. Regardless, what I meant to say is that Microsoft is the group that, the company that wants to be, super nice and be consumer friendly and stuff when it comes to not making games exclusive and all that kind of stuff. Whereas Sony has always been very like, we're going to make everything just for PlayStation, and we're going to try to make it seem like we're so much better so that more people come to PlayStation. And if more people, come to PlayStation, then we will have won the console war, right? And it won't matter if we have less money than Microsoft because we'll have more customers, right, in the gaming market. But the thing is that Microsoft has went kind of. First, let's take it back a little bit. Let's just bring up really quick how many gaming studios each company owns, right? So Sony currently owns 21 major first-party developer studios, right? And then we look at Microsoft. Microsoft owns more than 40 gaming studios across 17 countries, right? So once they started realizing that PlayStation was selling more consoles, years ago they started kind of laying the groundwork to say, okay, you know what? Why don't we use the money that we have, and instead of trying to think small potatoes, which is going to game developers and spending extra money to make them make them not have exclusive or have exclusives for specifically for our console or whatever. Why don't we just buy the game studios? So Microsoft started buying up game studios left and right. They're just going out like, hey, you make good games? Cool. Poof, we're going to buy you. Bethesda, Activision, you pump out Call of Duties every year in the household names? Boom, we're buying you, right? And just kept buying up game studios, right? And, a lot of people, like I said, the people that are very, because like on Twitter, for example, there's so many people who are very console war-y, for lack of a better way of putting it. They're the kind of people who they sit back and they want to be like, yeah, well, look at what Microsoft's doing. Well, look at the games they got coming out. Oh, look, this is gonna make your game, your console seem irrelevant. And blah blah blah. And it's like, these are grown men. You're talking about men older than me, 40s, early 50s, and stuff like that, sitting back warring over a console on the internet. Like, I just have to say, and I'm sorry if that hurts anyone's feelings, but if that's your life and you're an adult, you got to really think about some stuff. You got to look in the mirror and ask yourself some very tough questions, because that's absolutely insane. You should have disposable income, and you should, which I'm pretty sure they do, and you should just own whatever console you want at that point. It shouldn't really be that deep to you. Why should you care? It's okay to talk about stuff, but to be on the internet, arguing with people and going back and forth and getting your feelings hurt because the company that you've invested your fanboy energy into is not proceeding the way that you see fit. There's a reason why companies like Microsoft have trillions of dollars and you don't. It's because they have the ability to think from a business standpoint versus a personal and emotional standpoint. And, I'm saying all this to say that Microsoft has taken the smarter route, in the sense of saying, do we want to keep sitting here worrying about making the better console or having more games, first party games for our consoles and all that kind of stuff? No. They have went on the road of streaming in regards to gaming. They are thinking about, like I said, the fact that they own all of these different game studios and continuing to subtly, or whether it be on a large scale like the Activision Blizzard King buyout, or buying up smaller studios here and there and stuff like that, so that they just own these studios. But the other thing they're also doing, which is really upsetting a lot of Xbox fans, is that they're saying that, like, hey, anything that we do have that's exclusive may not be exclusive anymore. We might start letting, like, you take the game that I feel like is the most coveted Xbox, IP, Halo. This is the game that originally made Xbox stand out and made people want to get it to begin with, right? There's a lot of games that might come to mind, but it'd be like Gears of War, different things. But I feel like the number one game that is undisputably, people just think of Xbox when they think about it, is Halo. Right? And for the longest time, because that's usually how people act when they can't have something, they say, if you're not rich and you can't afford something that a rich person can have, a lot of times, instead of saying like, man, I really want that thing that a rich person has, a lot of times, like, I feel like it's just human nature. People will say, well, I don't really care about that. That's dumb. I don't really care about a Lamborghini. And it's like, but if I gave you enough money to be able to buy a Lamborghini, or just gave you a Lamborghini, you'd rock that thing every single day, probably, right? But I feel like it's kind of the same thing. Like, if you're on one console and you can't play a certain game, a lot of people might sit there and say, well, I don't really care about Halo. I'm on PlayStation. I don't really care about Halo. But I found it funny that the second that Microsoft was like, hey, these games might be coming to PlayStation, all of a sudden people were like, yo, we're getting Halo. Oh my God, I can't believe it. I can't wait to be playing Halo. Yeah, we're going to be eating good. And that's just something that I personally find funny, because that's just something I notice about, human beings and stuff. But like I said, something I notice about human beings, like I'm not a human being. But you guys get what I'm saying. Nonetheless, though, That's the approach Microsoft is taking. Microsoft is thinking beyond consoles and thinking about becoming a gaming platform, like where if you have, like I said before, if you have something that connects to the internet with a screen on it, that you could plug a controller in or could connect Bluetooth, wirelessly, whatever, touch screen, they'll even give you the controller on the screen if that's what they got to do to get you to play. And me personally, I've enjoyed that because it is nice when I don't know, let's say I'm sitting in the office like the dentist or something with my kids and they got to be there for an hour and a half and I'm just bored. I'm like, yeah, let me pull up my phone and play a game that I've been putting off or whatever, or this thing, or my wife wants me to come in the living room and watch a movie with her, but I don't really care about it. It's like a Hallmark movie or something like that. I'm like, whatever, I'll bring my laptop in there and I'll play whatever I was just playing. I'll just play it on my PC, not PC, but my laptop. So many different things that it offers. I remember my sister, she's on PlayStation, and she wanted to play Marvel Rivals, but at the time, she only had a PS4. Now she has a PS5. Her husband just gave her a PS5 because he wanted to get the Slim or whatever, right? So she wanted to play it, but she couldn't play it because she was on PS4. And I was like, hey, you know what? I'm pretty sure you have a smart TV, and I think that yours is new enough to where it would have, the ability to stream the Xbox app from the TV. And I'm pretty sure, I can't remember for exactly, I have to call her and ask her, but I'm pretty sure she was able to play it until she got her PlayStation 5, right? And that's nice. It's nice that people that maybe don't necessarily have access to go out and get a console or whatever, but they have their phone, they got tablets, they got PCs, whatever, they're capable of allowing them to stream. It's nice that they have access to it. And ultimately, gaming is changing. That was the whole point of this video, right? Is that gaming is completely changing. And when I first started thinking about this whole thing with Xbox and Sony, it's easy to think about stuff in terms of, well, it's just Sony or just PlayStation and it's Xbox, right? And there's going to be a winner and there's going to be a loser, especially with me, because when I first started gaming, I'm as old as dirt, right? Just take you guys back. I've mentioned this in numerous videos for my followers who watch a lot of my different videos. But for newer viewers and stuff, my first console was a Sega Genesis, right? Like I said, old as dirt. Went to school with the dinosaurs. Get all the jokes out. Nonetheless, that was my first console, right? And if you would have told me when I was a kid that Sega wouldn't be a console anymore, I would have been like, you're crazy. Sega is the console. That's what it is. And I'm sure it was the same thing with previous generations where they had Ataris, and Atari was the only thing around. I'm pretty sure they thought Atari was going to be, main console forever, and that's just the way it was going to be. Only for it to be by the time that I was born, Atari wasn't making consoles anymore. They were a game group, but even then, it was just for them recreating, the old games that they had already had, like arcade games and stuff like that. And then, like I said, when I was coming up and was younger, there was Super Nintendo and there was Sega, and they were the two household name competitors. And then slightly after that, PlayStation came out, and we had one of each in the house. I had a Sega, my dad had a PlayStation, my sister had a Super Nintendo, right? And the only other Sega that came out was the Dreamcast. And, a lot of you, I'm sure, know what happened with Dreamcast. But if you don't, that's definitely something you might want to look into on its own, because that was a whole interesting thing. And that ended up becoming the downfall of Sega. And Sega had to completely restructure how they were able to maintain as a business to the point to where, they had a lot of IPs and stuff like Sonic the Hedgehog, etc. And they basically just had to keep making games, right? But they weren't able to make consoles anymore. And, I don't know if a lot of this was intended with Microsoft in regards to them saying hey, obviously it was intended, but what I mean is more did they realize that, hey, Sony is just, we just can't seem to beat Sony. There's never really a point in time where we're selling not even so much just more consoles than them, but even an equal amount of consoles, right? And they said, hey, let's slowly kind of we're gonna make a couple more, but let's just kind of slowly fade off of that and start working on the groundwork for the streaming and becoming just more of an overall gaming platform that can be played anywhere on anything at any given time, even to where there might be one day where you can download Xbox Game Pass on your PlayStation. All right, because it seems like they just don't care. Like when it comes to exclusivity. Sorry, I couldn't talk there for a second. They seem to just not care about that. Whereas that's Sony's whole thing. They're just like, that's all we got, man. We can't afford to make ourselves a platform. I mean, maybe we could, but we don't want to. We're really gonna like hold our ground on this, and we're gonna just be PlayStation forever. And there should be consoles, in my opinion, because there's a lot of people that don't want to have to deal with PCs. They have no idea what they're doing on a PC. They want to be able to just turn something on, turn the controller on, and just game, right? So personally, I feel like they should be around forever. But at the same time, though, I also like where Microsoft is going in regards to opening it up, because I do feel like in the future, people are going to look back on this and go, people used to care about what console you were playing on. You know what I mean? And I think it's just kind of like the evolution of gaming, just like the fact that the reason why we have console wars to begin with were really, if you think about it, because prior to cross-platform, you had to kind of have console wars, because if little Timmy over here got a PlayStation and then little Jacob over here got a Xbox, they weren't gonna be able to play games together. And that's really like a big part of the fun with gaming, is doing it with other people. You know, yeah, a lot of us play solo games and stuff like that. But since the dawn of multiplayer, who doesn't want to like play games with their friends and enjoy them and stuff like that? You know, so that's like when I was coming up, why there was a lot of people that would say, well, this thing is better, because it's kind of like our way socially of getting you to be on our side and, you know, be able to like play with us and enjoy different games and stuff like that with us. Whereas nowadays, there's no need for that anymore. It's very rare that a game comes out. Like I'm mind blown nowadays. And yeah, think about it. It's only been like 5 or 6 years since cross-platform has been a thing. And even still, maybe a little bit longer than that. But even still, though, like I said, for a game to come out nowadays and not have cross-platform is like really weird. I'm like, it's not cross-plat? Huh. Even if it comes out and it isn't cross-plat immediately, usually that's something that they just released a little early, but like that's something that they're working to implement in the very near future once it releases or whatever. So that's just kind of becoming the standard, because, you know, that's what happens when so many different games start to do something and it works and it's popular. Eventually, it slowly just becomes the standard for stuff, and that's kind of how anything is, right? Like, at first, phones didn't have cameras on them, right? And then a couple of phones came out and they had cameras, and people started buying more of those phones because, like, yeah, why would I not want a camera on my phone if I could have one? And then look where we are now. It'd blow your mind if you bought a phone that didn't have a camera on it, right? And that's just the way the world works, right? The evolution of things. Nonetheless, though, let's see. Was there anything else that I wanted to? Sorry, that's the problem with ranting, is sometimes you just kind of get on topics and just kind of start covering stuff. So yeah, but the other thing I want to talk about too is like, you know, while I was thinking about this, I started, you know, using Chat GPT. I was just kind of like, I was like, let me ask, you know, someone else, you know, or not someone else, but something else, I guess. You know what I mean? AI, like, that's one thing I do like to use it for, is to kind of pick its brain to see, which really it's just pulling information from across the web. But, you know, it said that, you know, the same thing I was thinking, right? Is that, like, yeah, while like console sales are behind on Xbox, they're actually thriving in everything else, whether it be Xbox Game Pass, which, like I've said before, I've kept Xbox Game Pass for a while, because once my kids, you know, because they just got into, like, you know, gaming on their own and stuff like that within the last 3-4 years, once they've gotten to that age, you know, they're a little bit younger, but still they've been gaming for a handful of years now. And when they first started gaming, they were younger, you know, very short attention spans. They wanted to just download as many games as possible, and it just wasn't. It's not. It's not practical to buy them 100 different games, especially if they're only going to play a lot of them for 5 minutes and then, you know, just switch to another game. So, you know, I just made it to where they could share their accounts through Xbox with me, Game Share, and it also shares everything else, like my subscription services and all that kind of stuff that are linked to my Microsoft account, obviously. So like Game Pass, right? And me personally, I don't really use Game Pass. Like if I really want a game, I really like it, I'll just buy the game. I don't, because you never know if something's going to be on Game Pass next week or whatever. Some games do stay on there forever, but still, I would prefer to just kind of own it and have it in my library if I personally care about it. But for them, though, it was nice because they would sit there, they'd download 10 games a day, play through them, whatever. They either like something, they don't like it, whatever. And every now and again, they would really enjoy something. So, for certain people, Game Pass is amazing. They have access to thousands of games in the library and stuff that they can enjoy. It's really nice for like day one releases of like newer games. So that way you're able to try out a game first and kind of get an idea for if you do like it or not. And if you don't, whatever, especially like, look at Starfield. Starfield was the kind of game where like I played it, got to the end of it. And then I was like, well, I'm good on it. I'm back to, multiplayer games, which is what I enjoy. But, I was glad that I didn't necessarily have to like go out and spend $70-$80 on that game. It was just nice to be able to have it on Game Pass, right? So there's that, right? And then, like I said as well, like cloud gaming. Cloud gaming is really nice. It's nice to just be able to play on whatever device that I have, like whether it be my laptop or my phone, whatever. If I go to the beach, I'm out at an appointment for a while, just kind of sitting, whatever, in the car, something like that, just hanging out, chilling, and being able to do that. And cross-platform accessibility, I don't really know what that has to do with things. It's blurring between the lines of console, PC. I mean, to me, that's kind of the same thing, but still, though, so that's what ChatGPT has to say. Exclusive games. And like that, they're basically saying the same thing that I said. PlayStation strength. So it says like Sony has constantly delivered blockbuster exclusive games like God of War, The Last of Us, Spider-Man, which draw players to their platform. And that really is a big selling point for Sony, is the fact that they have these games and that, their games like Spider-Man, for example, which is an extremely popular game, God of War, The Last of Us. Whereas Xbox, like I said, they've historically struggled with first-party exclusives. And it says, but Microsoft has been working to change this by acquiring studios like Bethesda. And then it has, whatchamacallit, Starfield, Elder Scrolls, and Activision Blizzard. But the thing is that none of those games except Starfield was an exclusive. Now, they said Elder Scrolls was going to be an exclusive, but I'd be willing to bet you anything by the time it actually comes for Elder Scrolls to come out, which is going to be a while. I mean, I wouldn't think they'd probably even come out in the next couple of years, to be honest with you, because those games are usually massive, and I would hope they would take their time on it prior to releasing it. But still, though, I'd be willing to bet anything, man, like anything, that when that game comes out, they're going to be like, oh, well, you know what? We said it was going to be exclusive to Xbox, but we changed our mind, and we're going to be nice and just let PlayStation in. PlayStation would never in a billion years let really any of their games come to Microsoft unless there's just something where it was like a timed exclusive or whatever, right? And that was just as much as they could get out of it. But if there's anything where like they can make it first party to where they have exclusive rights to it, they never let nothing come to Xbox. Like, the best you can hope for is that you own a PC, and eventually, just like I said with Spider-Man, after about a year after it's been on PlayStation, then they're like, all right, well, now the PC people can have it, right? Mod it up, do whatever you want to do to it. So, but let's go on here. Let's see. You got revenue and market impact. Xbox is competitive. Subscription revenue, Game Pass, and Microsoft's focus on digital revenue streams are highly lucrative, even if console sales lag. Man, it's kind of the same thing. Global strategy. Microsoft is investing in cloud. It says it's just the bigger picture. It says Microsoft isn't necessarily trying to win the console war in the traditional sense. Instead, they're shifting focus to a broader ecosystem that includes console, PC, and cloud gaming. It just kind of, this is all repetitive here, but it was like I was saying, right? Like it's a bigger picture that they're thinking about, and they're thinking about way further down the road. And I feel like that kind of speaks to why Microsoft itself, not just Microsoft as far as Xbox and gaming, but just their company overall, has always kind of thought about everything, I feel like, in a long-term kind of thing, whereas other companies that try to compete with them, they try to stick with these like, well, we're going to take the exclusive route with everything, and look at where that gets you at the end of the day, and overall, like what your market cap ends up being. Me personally, I'd rather have the $3 trillion market cap than the, 130 billion. I mean, they're both good, but, 3 trillion is better than anything under that. Right. So, Clearly the decisions they're making are working, even if they're upsetting people within that that base. Um, but ultimately, though, it is what it is. But like I said, that was just something that I was thinking about, and I thought that it was worth kind of just venting about, and not venting like it's something that's bothering me, but you know what I'm saying, just kind of going on a rant about it, and talking about it, just kind of thinking it out and stuff, looking at the facts, and then speculating a little bit too as well. So, but let me know in the comments though, like what you guys think. Like, do you think that the decisions that Xbox, like that Microsoft is making are like smart decisions? Do you think that it's beneficial? That they're looking at the bigger picture? Do you think that they just they're taking a serious L to Sony? That doesn't matter, vice versa. What are you thinking about Sony and the decisions that they've made, all that kind of stuff? Just let me know in the comments, because like I said, that's what we're here for. Just talk, chat it up about gaming. That's what the whole point of this channel is. But I appreciate you guys for listening, and I'm out.